Hello and welcome. Today I have with me the MSI Raider 16 GE68 for 2024. In this video review, we'll take a look at everything it has to offer and ponder the question if this laptop is a good choice for you. And stay tuned till the conclusion where I'll give my verdict on competitors such as Lenovo, HP, and even Alienware. Before we begin though, please click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when there's new content available here. Let's begin. Couple of highlights from the specs for the Raider 16 GE68 for 2024. We have the i9-14900HX. This is a Raptor Lake refresh CPU, 32 gigs of 5600 MHz RAM. We don't benefit from the faster RAM that Meteor Lake gets, up to 7400 megatransfers per second. We have a 1TB PCIe SSD, 4070 8GB onboard, a Highlight 99 watt-hour battery, and a hefty price tag. The laptop comes wrapped in a nice and beautiful sleeve that can also be used as a lint-free cloth for wiping down the display in the laptop. The design itself is quite subtle compared to last year's and what we had from prior years from MSI. The bottom panel has this beautiful etched Raider logo, which I think is a very nice touch. And make no mistakes about this laptop though, this is one thick boy. The top lid does exhibit a little bit of flex, nothing too unusual though, considering I'm pressing here quite hard. You would expect that, and of course if you press towards the center, it's a little bit more flex there because it's the screen and less support. There's a red trim around the back of the display here in the center besides the thermal cooling area. Also, there's a little bit of red trim on the bottom edge of the panel on the top lid there, as well on the left and the right side as well. Not too shabby and not too gaudy in terms of coloring and accenting. Plus, we have this MSI logo that's centered under the bezel on the display. The sticker job here is also very well done, nicely centered and nicely straight. We have hinges on the edges here of the display panel. They're quite sturdy, they seem quite solid, they're quite stiff as well, so you get very little rattle or shake while you're typing or actually using the laptop. Of course, when you open the initial panel, there's a little bit of display wobble here. We'll show that here in just a moment. Another great thing is that it's a one-hand opener. It's nice to see that this sturdy laptop allows you to quickly open it with one hand from almost any angle on the lid and display, and as you can see here that there's a little bit of wobble, but it settles quite quickly. Ports are well appointed on the MSI Raider 16. Starting from the left hand side, we have the first Thunderbolt 4 USB Type-C port, followed by a SD card slot. This is of the SD Express 7.0 standards, which means you're going to get verified 300 megabits per second plus read and write speeds with the appropriate type of SD card. And finally, we have a combo headphone and audio jack flanked by one of the left side firing speakers. And thankfully, we have all of the heavy hitting and the heavy cable ports on the rear of the device. This is the preferred position, particularly for things such as AC adapters and for Ethernet plugs. Speaking of Ethernet, we begin with a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port courtesy of Killer on the back, an HDMI 2.1 port that is connected directly to the NVIDIA RTX 4070 GPU, a Kensington lock slot, an additional USB Type-C port on the back that is also of the DisplayPort Alt mode variety, plus it's the USB 3.2 Gen 2 speed, and a proprietary AC power jack. Beginning with the backlight bleed test, we see here that there is some issues with backlight bleed on this version of the MSI GE68 Raider 16. That said, you may have a different experience on your device. It does vary from panel to panel, but you can see here that it's quite visible without the need for a completely darkened room or any kind of light effects here. But when you're into the desktop, it really isn't much of an issue. Keep in mind the backlight is also an issue when you shut down the device, when you can also notice it as well. That said though, the overall brightness fares quite well. If we turn up the brightness from 0% all the way up to 100% to check the uniformity, to check the clarity and the brightness level of the backlight for this particular LCD panel, we see that it is a very good showing. Overall, a nice and gradual climb up from 0 to 100%, no significant drops at 70 or 80% like we saw on some of the Lenovo laptops of yesteryear. That said, if we go back down from 100% to 0 as well, I found this device to be quite usable at any range from 50 even down to 30% brightness in a dimly lit room. In addition, we have a MSI True Color app which is reinstalled on the laptop. This is one of the handy utilities that MSI provides, so I'm pretty thankful for that. This allows you to switch between the different color profiles that allow you to switch the modes of the display, such as Adobe RGB, DCI-P3. You can switch it from the icon in the taskbar, but you can also toggle up this little utility and switch between the different modes. Lovely to see that. A little bit hard to demo here over the screen record. It's much more visible with an overhead shot, but sadly this was all I was able to get. You see here we can quickly switch between the different modes for different types of work and play scenarios on the display. The MSI keyboard wasn't one of my favorites because of the way that the keys were placed. If you look here, the arrow keys are cramped in and shifted, the FN key is shifted over to the right, and the numpad is missing a fourth column. Those multiplication and division marks have been moved up. That makes also the home and end traditional positionings a little different. That said though, the overall RGB on the laptop is quite good. The function is very well lit, and you get a secondary function highlight when you press the FN key. In addition to the secondary functions, it will also highlight the arrow keys, which have some additional meta or macro shortcuts, to toggle the fan modes as well as other really useful utilities. That said, we can see here we have fan modes, we have play and pause for your audio. We also have a crosshairs on screen that can be toggled on and off with this key with function and down. And we have a no display mode. I believe this is if you're docked in an external display mode and you just want to see on the external display. An additional nice feature is that the WASD keys are semi-transparent, so you can see below them to the switch mechanisms and see the actual bright LED RGB lights. Very cool effect. Other than aesthetic appeal, though, I don't think really it offers much, but it's nice to see here that MSI has taken care to provide this for gaming enthusiasts. And finally, the power LED or power key is also LED backlit and semi-transparent. Trackpad is pretty decent. Nothing really to say here that highlights this trackpad. It is a nice and smooth surface. Multitask gestures and scrolling and tracking handles very well. Very few, if any, missed presses here. However, this is not a Windows Touch or Windows Precision trackpad, and it is not a glass touch surface. It is mostly a polished plastic, and there's no additional specs provided from MSI. In addition, there is a way to toggle the trackpad on and off, so you can enable and disable it for your gaming sessions, so you don't actually tap or hit with your palm on the trackpad and disable or tab out of your game on accident. Nice handy feature, MSI. There are 3 zones of RGB on this laptop, and they're quite impressive, beginning with the MSI Dragon logo that illuminates on the top lid. This can of course be controlled through the SteelSeries GG software that's pre-installed on the laptop and is used to administer all of the RGB, including the MSI Dragon logo, the RGB keyboard, as well as the Mystic light bar. Here we can see another look at the RGB. It is quite bright, it's quite vivid, and it's a little bit difficult here to depict, but in person it is actually quite a visual and stunning show. As you can see here from all different angles, the lighting is very well done, particularly that Mystic bar at the, Mystic light bar at the front of the device. It's not something that I've seen before, but particularly the detail that is involved in that Mystic light bar and the LEDs, how they're placed there, how stunning and clear the covering is over that. I was very impressed with the overall showing from MSI in terms of the RGB on this laptop. Usually I do talk about the RGB offering on other keyboards and other laptops with other elements of RGB lighting, but they're not ever as impressive as what I've seen here. If you look at this particular detail, the LEDs are individually visible, and the colors that cycle through them are absolutely stunning. You could spend a long time just looking at this. Could be an ASMR video in and of itself. As you stare at these LEDs, they look absolutely gorgeous as the different color patterns wave through the front of the device. If you're an RGB lover, you're going to love the MSI Raider 16 and this Mystic light. To administer the RGB on the MSI Raider 16, you'll need to use the SteelSeries GG software. This comes pre-installed with the laptop. Head over to the Engine tab here, and you'll find here that under Gear, you can see the MSI Matrix. This will be your configurations for the top lid logo, as well as your Mystic light bar across the front. You can go crazy here with configuration. There's tons of different options. You can also configure game-specific configurations, tune to your heart's content. You also have here the MSI Per Key RGB keyboard by SteelSeries. This will allow you to choose choose from some specific modes or templates rather that you can use as a starting point. And then of course beyond that you have endless customization. You can spend days in here customizing to your heart's content. One more thing I want to point out here is if you go into library, you can actually click scan for games. It will find all of the games that are installed on your laptop. You can add them here, and as you can see, I've added Borderlands 3. You can do specific configurations for games with color combinations for keyboards, the Mystic Light, and the MSI logo, etc. 2.5 gigabit Ethernet wired connectivity is provided thanks to Killer here. Killer is now owned by Intel, so essentially you're getting Intel chipset based 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. And if we look here at the copying speeds, the speeds are actually quite good. We're maxing out at the potential speeds for 2.5 gigabit Ethernet over the wired connection here. We're getting about 250 megabytes per second. Nice and consistent as very fast speeds here. Also on board here is Wi-Fi 7, which is the latest iteration of the Wi-Fi standard. And we've got here Bluetooth version 5.4. If we look at the LMP numbers here, the link protocol, we can then map this to 13 on our drivers within the laptop, which maps essentially to Bluetooth version 5.4. That said, unless you have the right infrastructure to take advantage of the Wi-Fi 7 speeds, you will not be benefiting from any of that latest goodness. Still, nonetheless, nice to see Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth version 5.4 included. Well done, MSI. Storage on the MSI Raider is provided thanks to a Samsung 1TB PCIe Gen 4 SSD. It's nice to see a Samsung drive offered here. However, it was very disappointing in terms of the figures and the scores. The performance was very lackluster, and I had to do a double check to make sure that these weren't indeed Gen 3 speeds. This is a Gen 4 drive. It's just that the figures are quite low versus other laptops that I've tested last year and this year. The full-sized SD card reader is a very welcomed addition to the MSI Raider 16. When you insert the SD card, it goes in most of the way, so it makes it much easier and less prone to breaking or otherwise snapping if you were to leave the card in and when you stow away in a backpack. That said, the copy speeds are pretty good as well. It does manage to get about 150 megabytes per second. Keep in mind the card I'm using here is not of the SD card Express 7.0 standard. If you use the right type of card, you're going to get even faster speeds. The power adapter provided for the MSI Raider 16 is 280 watts. It is a proprietary tip though that is reversible, so you can actually plug it in from either side, but this just makes it a little bit annoying because you have to buy it directly from MSI as it's a non-standard plug. Power Delivery 3.0 is supported. That means you can do USB Type-C charging with the port on the right hand side at up to 100 watts. To get the best battery life, make sure you go into the MSI Center and engage Super Battery mode. Also, you can go into the Windows setting and enable Battery Saver. With the 99 watt-hour battery and a 50% brightness, you'll get about 3 hours from this. Not too different from what we saw from the Raptor Lake generation of last year. Noteworthy on the MSI Raider 16 are the speakers. There are two 2-watt speakers and two 4-watt speakers, both for tweeters and for subwoofers. There can be noticeable bass that is felt from the device. The device gets nice and loud and can easily overpower the maximum fan speed on this particular laptop. Nice to see that, and it's noteworthy, worth pointing out, I believe. I usually don't cover speakers, but I felt that this needed to be mentioned. Love to see more speakers on laptops in the future. The MSI Raider 16 GE68 for 2024 features a 1080p 30 FPS infrared capable webcam, which means you've got Windows Hello and facial login support on board. In addition, we've got dual array microphones in this laptop here, powered by Intel Smart Sound technology. And from the MSI Center, I've got the Audio Noise Cancellation Pro Engage, both for microphone noise cancellation and for the speakers noise cancellation as well, so we should hear less feedback going back into the microphones that's in the laptop. Let me know what you think of this video quality and the audio quality in the comments below. On board the MSI Raider is the i9-14900HX. This is part of the Raptor Lake refresh, part of the 14th generation family. Keep in mind that 14th generation this year is a mix of Raptor Lake refresh as well as Meteor Lake CPUs, so you'll have to keep an eye on which CPU to get. Still with 24 cores, 32 threads, base of about 2.2 gigahertz, and a boost speed of 5.8 gigahertz, which is just absolutely insane. We're getting lots of performance here, but overall just a minor bump over the i9-13900HX of last year. The performance overall is still pretty good and very much in line with what we saw from Raptor Lake last year. There will be a follow-up video coming soon. Please get subbed for that, which compares the Meteor Lake 13th generation Raptor Lake and the 14th generation Raptor Lake refresh CPU, so you can make an informed buying decision considering the GPU options are the same from last year. If you're looking to get something better, you'll have to hold out until CES 2025, most likely, when we'll see Arrow Lake or whatever the next generation, the 15th generation Intel CPUs, which will be successors to the Meteor Lake CPUs that we've gotten this year. The laptop GPU options for the MSI Raider 16 this year are the RTX 4070, 4080, and 4090. The model I have here is equipped with the RTX 4070 8GB with a max TGP of 140 watts. We saw this GPU introduced at CES 2023 last year, and keep in mind that the segmentation differences means that this will be a significant step down from the 4080 of yesteryears. There is almost a 50% performance difference between the RTX 4070 Mobile and the RTX 4080, or up to 50%, I would say rather. That said, enjoy the look at the figures here. It's pretty much very similar to what we saw last year, though with driver improvements we are now seeing above 100 watts of performance in many titles with the RTX 4070 versus what we saw last year in the voltage limits, where we were seeing basically 90 to 95, perhaps hitting 100 watts during gaming sessions. So to conclude, what are my thoughts on the Raider 16? I was pleasantly surprised by the 3 USB Type-C ports in particular on each side of the laptop. This was very welcome. I was wowed by the RGB, especially the Mystic light bar on the front of the device. I was, let's just say, mystified and spent far too long staring at the color cycle through the individually visible LEDs. And of course, the full-sized SD card slot, as a content creator, is a must-have and a lifesaver. The performance was as expected for a gaming laptop with the CPU and GPU scores right up there with the competition. I believe MSI had the edge here in terms of cooling and better thermals due to the thicker chassis. If you consider longevity, then having a variety of ports of all types is a must. Well done MSI for choosing a well-rounded set of ports and offering the highest standards for the USB ports. It's unacceptable to see gaming laptops in 2024 that are still coming to market with USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports. It's not all positives though, there are a few short downsides. I did not like the proprietary power plug, which means you have to buy directly from MSI at a premium. I was also not a fan of the keyboard layout with the squished and mashed arrow keys, and the backlight bleed was unacceptable for a laptop at this price point. As for the competition, Lenovo, I believe, offers a challenge with its Slim and the Pro series to the Raider 16. I haven't yet reviewed the HP Omen Transcend 16 yet, but that's one I'm very hopeful for. As for Alienware, having just reviewed the M16R2, I think Alienware is losing touch with the essentials and what makes a good gaming laptop great. Perhaps they're too focused on brand, aesthetics, and form over function, the Apple formula. Well, that's all I have to say for now. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like this content, please click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when there's new content available here. See you in the next video.